what scares them, but mostly he wants to understand what ignites their brilliance and excellence. Please join me in welcoming Trevor Botkin.
Good morning. A year ago, I was at the Whistler Congress with the Canadians, and I had the great fortune of meeting very many concierge, and one in particular told me a story of a time that she delivered what I felt was extraordinary customer service. She told me that she had a guest that came to her, a young man that wanted to propose to his girlfriend, and asked if she could help. Now, as a man, I was a little bit shocked that a guy would go to the concierge and ask for that, but she says it happens all the time. So I figured the story would be, she gave him some suggestions and that would be the end of it, but she actually put together an entire binder, really a piece of magic for this young man to help him make the biggest moment of his life and then make the dreams come true of this woman. And I asked her, why'd you go to so much work? I know you're busy. I know you're all very busy. She said, because I love doing that. And I love the reaction that I got. And more importantly, I love the reaction that he got from her. So that's what I want to talk about today is what you do so brilliantly day in, day out. When we started the work, one of the first things we did with Canada was we did focus groups with general managers and director of sales. This came out of survey research that we had, and we wanted to get a little bit more information. So we looked at what the greatest benefit of having a Le Clefs d'Or concierge in the lobby was for them. And interestingly enough, overwhelmingly, it was this: a superior level of professionalism and a dedication to guest service. This is what the general managers and the director of sales were highlighting as what they felt was the single greatest benefit of having you in the lobby. So I wanted to look at that. First, I want to pull it apart and say, what's a professional? Well, the baseline is a definition out of the dictionary, which is engaged in a specific activity as one's main paid occupation rather than as an amateur. So basically, if you get paid to do it, you qualify as a professional. So who here in the room gets paid to be a concierge? Should be all of you. So based on that really simple definition, you all get to be professionals. But let's pull it apart a little bit further and look at what a profession is. A paid occupation, especially one that involves prolonged training and formal qualification. Okay, so that sets the bar a little bit higher because of that prolonged training and that formal qualification. So right away we can see how you differentiate from a regular concierge or a tour desk operator because of this formal training that you go through. The bar is set very high to become a Le Clefs d'Or member. It takes time. In fact, when we did the focus groups, I asked the director of sales if they knew what it was involved to become a member, and none of them had any clue that it takes a minimum 5 years on post before you can even apply. They were surprised by that. None of them had to go through that to get their job. So right away we can say that as a professional organization, the bar is set very high, and therefore you are professionals. So superior level of professionalism and a dedication to guest service. So let's look at guest service. By a show of hands, who here in the room has delivered good guest service before? I'm assuming it's everybody. Don't be shy. Okay, so who here has delivered great guest service before? I know it's early, get the arms up, I can't see everyone. Okay. That's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about something that's called inspired service. We covered this a little bit in Montreal. In fact, we pulled this word apart and we defined it to make it a little bit easier in Montreal. But simply from Latin, inspire, to breathe, is inspired. So it's breathing life into the act of giving extraordinary help to others. Service is really simply help. You're just helping somebody. So it's extraordinary help. So I want you to turn to the person next to you, and I'd like you to take 2 minutes, and take turns, to give an example of a time that you gave extraordinary help to another. So 2 minutes. I want you to turn to the person next to you, a time that you gave extraordinary help to another. If you haven't done so already, make sure the other person gets a try too. Okay, let's wrap it up. Okay, were you all able to come up? Were you all able to share with each other a story? Judging from the noise in the room, either you're talking about last night, or you all have really great stories of times that you delivered extraordinary help to another. I assume so, right? This is what you do. I know all of you, and I've yet to meet a concierge who doesn't have one of those stories where they completely knocked it out of the park. And it was magic for the guests, and they still to this day don't know how you did that. That's inspired service. Now, we live in a world that's moving very quickly. It's changing rapidly. Those of you, like Colin said last night, who have been around longer than others, have seen a lot of changes in our industry, in the hospitality specifically. There's 2.6 billion smartphones in the world today. In the next 4 years, that goes up to 6.1 billion. There's an app for everything, and there's an app for everyone. Now, every time I talk to people about Concierge. This is the thing they think is the biggest threat to your industry. They feel that there's an app that's about to replace you, and that's a big threat to your industry. And I always kind of agreed until I got to know you better. And in the last 13 months, I spent a lot of time getting to know both the industry and specifically the concierge better. And when we talk about inspired service, there's something, if you could take anything away from today, it will be this. These are the 6 tenets of inspired service. The first one's experience. You have to have been there and seen that and done it to be really good at your job. The longer you've done it, the more you go, oh, I have a solution for that because I've seen this before. The easier it gets, the more you've been on the job. That's the first point. Empathy. You have to be able to understand what the person across from you is feeling. You have to be able to feel that so that you can put yourself in their place to be able to deliver an inspired service. Creativity. There is absolutely no problem in the world today that can't be solved with enough creativity. I always say I'd rather be creative than smart. So everything that you do, the more creativity you apply to it, the more magical the opportunity is. Passion. Now you have that in spades. I know that from every encounter I have, passionate group of people. It's actually quite remarkable when you're in a room with this many people who absolutely love what they do day in, day out, and you wear it on your sleeve. Intuition. This is where the magic comes in. And I think you all can think of examples where you just knew what that guest needed. Even though they were saying one thing, you knew, actually, I should send them there because this is what they really need. And maybe your coworker turned to you and go, how'd you know that? And say, I don't know. I just felt that that's what they needed. It's the ability to anticipate a need before it's spoken, which is the hallmark of a true professional concierge. And finally, compassion. And this one is what always blows me away when I speak with you all, is that you actually care about the well-being of the person across from you. You take it personally when something goes wrong in the hotel that affects their stay on a guest service line. Maybe it's the bellman or maybe it's a housekeeper, but you take that personally and you go and fix it because you actually care about the guest. This is what makes up inspired service. And here's the trick. There will never be an application that replaces that. And I know a little about programming and coding, and I'm not smart enough to even think how you could do it, but you will never be replaced. As long as you're known for that. Delivering inspired customer service. Sure, they can figure out a map. Sure, they can book their own reservation. But when it comes down to it, who in the hotel is going to own that? Who is going to be responsible for those things? Who actually cares? It's you. That's what makes you so incredibly special. So let's talk about the guest a little bit. I want to talk about guest expectations. And I'm actually going to challenge you here. I want you to turn to the person next to you and very quickly, I want you to name 3 expectations that today's guest has specifically for a Le Clefs d'Or concierge. So I don't want to talk about what they have for the hotel or your property or the guest service department, but specifically, I want you to come up with 3 expectations that guests, travelers today have for a Le Clefs d'Or concierge. Okay? So really quickly, 3 expectations. So how did you do with that? Were you all able to come up with 3 expectations, at least? Did anyone have trouble specifically coming up with expectations for a Le Clefs d'Or member? By show of hands, did anyone actually have trouble with coming up with 3? Because in my conversations, it's interesting. It depends again at the property, and it depends in the country that you're in. There's guests that know exactly who you are and what you do. And then there's guests who have no clue. And I've even heard stories of guests going to the concierge desk, asking the concierge who's wearing their keys, "Excuse me, can you tell me where the concierge desk is?" Now, we can assume that they're not the most intelligent, maybe brightest spoon in the drawer. But if that's ever happened to you, that's an issue of brand awareness. And it's something we've been looking at in Canada for the last 13 months. How to increase the awareness of the brand in a North American market, specifically in Canada. And specifically, we were targeting with the general managers. And this is what we talk about when we're talking about brand. Now, most people, when I discuss brand, this is what they think of. They think logos. They think products, cars, coffee. Even the hotels are brands. It's hard to think of this as being a brand, Les Clefs d'Or. So most people just revert to what we normally think. The definition of brand has actually shifted considerably in the last 60 years. But if this is true, that these are all brands, then by extension, we could assume that this is your brand. Am I correct? Okay. So I'm going to do an exercise with you. I want you to look at this concierge. Tell me how you feel about him, or look at him. Does he inspire? I didn't change the keys. I didn't change his suit. I didn't change his tie. Only one thing changed between those 2 photos. The keys aren't your brand, they're your name brand. You and what you do is the brand. There's a great article on the internet that Forbes put out talking about brand. And it's put simply, your brand is what your prospect thinks when he or she hears your brand name. It's everything the public thinks it knows about your brand name offering, both factual and emotional. Your brand name exists objectively. People can see it. It's fixed. But your brand only exists in someone's mind. It only exists in their mind. So Les Clefs d'Or, as your name brand, exists. We can see it. We can touch it. You can see the keys. But the brand is only held in their mind. The great author and marketing guru, Seth Godin, says this about brand. A brand is the set of expectations, memories, stories, and relationships that, when taken together, account for a consumer's decision to choose one product or service over another. Expectations, memories, stories, relationships. Isn't that what you do every day? At Think 8, we define brand simply like this. It's a product, a service, or an identity that creates a strong emotional connection, entrenched loyalty, and high expectations. High expectations is the most important of those 3. It all starts with high expectations. That's why I asked you, what some of the expectations of the guests were. It's only when we meet or exceed the expectations of the guest do we start actually increasing and developing a strong emotional connection. It's only through that strong emotional connection, having accomplished meeting or exceeding those expectations, that we create an entrenched loyalty. So how does that work? I travel a lot. I walk into a hotel. I don't always get to book my hotels. I wish I could. And I may have never stayed in that hotel, but when I walk in, I have a certain expectation of quality based on the name brand of that hotel chain. But the minute I see one of you sitting behind a desk with your shiny keys, my expectation goes up. Now, I have never met you. I don't know your name. You've never serviced me. But because you're wearing the keys, my expectations go up. Because I have a strong relationship with the group, with the brand. Because I've never had a bad experience with a Les Clefs member. So that develops an entrenched loyalty in me that I only want to stay in properties where one of you are working at it. That is the power of your brand, of you in this room. Because you, the keys, sit in the middle of that little triangle. It's what you do, exceeding those expectations. It's your strong emotional connection. And the entrenched loyalty is to you. Why is that important? Seth said this, if you remember, I take you back, a consumer's decision to choose one product or service over another. Now, people aren't going to choose, do I say with a Les Clefs or a tour desk? Les Clefs or non-Les Clefs. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about there's a lot of choices in the hospitality industry. There's a lot of brands out there. They all have beds. They all have sheets. Most have TVs. They all have housekeepers, front desks. So what you want is for people to stay there and choose there for one reason and one reason only. Now that's power. If people start picking where they stay based on the keys, now we can start looking at supply and demand. Now we can start thinking, okay, general managers will start to scramble and owners will start to go, oh, I need to get more keys in my lobby because that's what my public are asking for. When we get that kind of brand recognition, and I know some properties are like that already, and some of you, certainly the more historic buildings, in some of the older, more established markets, you don't have that problem. And you'll probably never have that problem because those people are there, they get you. But in our emerging markets, where we're seeing new travel, and certainly if you read the papers that are coming out from Deloitte on hospitality, the emerging markets are not in the US and Canada, they're in India, they're in China. So that's what we need to look at when we're talking brand awareness, is bringing that up. So then the value that you provide, which is so incredible from a guest perspective, is seen from an owner perspective. Because they look at dollars and cents. They look at money going out, money coming in. But the minute the guest starts saying, I'm staying there because of Clefs d'Or, they will pay attention. They will. Because it's money not coming in the minute they choose not to stay there because you're not in the lobby. So what's most important is that you, every day, make the choice, because it is a choice, to deliver inspired service, regardless of what's happening. That every moment you have a guest in front of you is an opportunity to create a strong emotional connection by exceeding their expectations, creating entrenched loyalty. Every moment of every day is an opportunity to educate them on what you do and who you are as a brand, as a group. Quite possibly the most incredible group of service professionals on the planet that will ever exist. You have no competition. There is no one on the planet with the size and scope and ability that is sitting in this room right now and with the other 3,250 members around the world. It's incredible. And I can say that because as an outsider, I've been embedded within the organization for the last 13 months, first in Canada, then the Pan American, and now here. You guys are incredible as a group, all of you, men, women, every one of you. If you own these 6 tenets of inspired service, if everything you do is based in this and wrapped up in compassion for the person in front of you, you can't help but deliver inspired service. And inspired service isn't just a nice to have. It's fundamentally the key to everything you do. Thank you very much. I believe we allotted some time for question and answer. If there are any questions, I will come up with the answers. Hoping. Yes, sir.
My name is Arshad Koka. I'm from Denmark. You told this is 6 elements. I'm missing one, commitment.
Commitment.
My question actually is, all the brand hotels have the Keynote concierges. So that is just like a paramount importance. But what difference it will make for a guest which hotel to choose? Intercontinental, St. Regis, because they all have the keys. They all have the concierges. So I can answer that it is the person, it's the vision, it's the passion, it's the commitment of a Keynote member. And our brand is an embodiment of style, class, and personality.
Yes. I wish it was true that every major hotel, I can think of a couple now. Specifically, there's one opening in New York that's a major brand that has a tour desk. Somebody made a choice somewhere high up that it made more financial sense for them to have a tour desk than a Le Clefs member. I won't name the brand, but I do know that because I had the conversation 2 weeks ago, that's what that ownership decided for that hotel in New York that's opening up to have a tour desk. So there is option. Honestly, I wish I could say that I can speak about every section as well as I can speak about Canada. Honestly, I cannot. So I can take my experience, and I did work in hospitality in the US, so I do have some reality there. But unfortunately, when it gets further away from those markets, I start getting into opinion and not fact. But I do know that in every company that I've worked in, and I've been fortunate to work globally, our company has definitely been globally, it comes down to relationships of the guest or consumer in the case if it's a different kind of company, it's relationships. And that's something that you have all done so brilliantly and continue to do so. And I say, do it more and own that. And yes, the guest will have choice of Do I stay with the Le Clefs door here, or do I stay with the Le Clefs door here? In an ideal world, that's true. And then it comes down to individual preferences. But as a baseline, let's get every traveler, every guest who can afford to stay in a hotel with a Le Clefs door member staying there. When your brand becomes synonymous with customer service internationally and not just in small markets, that's power. And I could spend all day talking about what that means in terms of business models, revenue, and things that support what you do. But suffice it to say, the value of what you do is incredible and has been overlooked by the hospitality industry for too long, in my opinion, completely overlooked. There are general managers who get it, and I know, and I've met a bunch, who support you unequivocally. And then there's general managers who I've also met who do not get it. And those members pay their own dues. They're my target. Those general managers are on my hit list of people to educate and to inspire to get on board with what you do.
Mr. Trevor?
Yes, Maurice?
Bernadette Lai from the Seattle Sheraton. You know, I come to these meetings and it's very inspiring to hear this, but it would be really nice if we could hear that you go to general managers meetings and talk about us, because we know that we're great, but our general managers just don't get it. My hotel puts it on the website that we have 3 members of the prestigious Le Clefs d'Or organization at our property, but that's all. They don't understand what that takes. We're not supported in coming to congresses. They pay for our dues, and that's about it. But in our city itself, we have a lot of new hotels that are opening up, and one just is advertising with they're looking for new staff, and they have somebody wearing the Le Clefs d'Or keys. But I went to just check out to see what they were doing, and their pay scale is minimum wage, basically. Okay. And I said, you're not going to get a Le Clefs d'Or concierge to work for minimum wage in this city. And a lot of the managers and even front desk managers have no idea what a concierge does in general, let alone what the difference is for the Le Clefs d'Or concierge. And it would be nice if we had some wonderful speakers that would actually pursue hotel management and educating them on our behalf. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, again, so what we're doing in Canada right now, the first step of the program that we implemented and started last May was to target specifically how do we, as an association, target general managers. And we felt that it was one of the responsibilities, and this is what Carolina and her executive came up with, that one of the responsibilities of the association was to increase communication between the association and Canadian general managers, and to provide that information so that they could be educated. And we're currently working out tools and programs on how to do that within Canada. Let's call it a pilot program, to see what works most effectively at inspiring general managers as to what you do. I know none of you like to brag. You would have picked a different career choice if you like to brag. So one of the things that we're looking at is how do we brag for you? How do we carry that banner into the ownership and general manager's office and say, this is what we're doing? And we launched a couple of programs in Montreal at the Pan American. One was we created a guide for collaborating with the sales department to increase room revenue. And it was a how-to. Half the book is nothing but this is what the Le Clefs d'Or is, and this is how amazing you are. It's bragging on paper so you don't have to. The second half is an implementation program on how to work together and collaborate. And we launched that a month ago as a pilot to see if we can increase dialogue in there so general managers can go, whoa, now there's a relationship with my sales department, so my sales department knows how to effectively use you or collaborate with you without cutting across your service lines, to use and sell what you do to the guest to increase room revenue. The quid pro quo is they have to help sell you back to the general managers because they're great at selling anyway, so they might as well sell you too. So, and that's something that we just launched a month ago, and we're now getting some feedback from the attendees that were in Pan Am. So again, if you book it, I'll go talk to them, and I will talk to any general manager on the planet. That's not a problem. We are taking the steps now to go, how do we target them? Where do they get their information, and how do we address that for them? But it's a great question, and that's what we've been playing with for 13 months now, is specifically how to go after them. Yes.
Good morning. My name is Johnson Dong from China. I'm working in the hotel, the Hangzhou Bay Hotel. My question is, I need your opinion, personal opinion. You just now mentioned the brand. Yes. I just want to know what's the future for the Les Clefs brand, the Challenger. Because now you see have so many brands and developing in China, also I think in the world, but I really want to know what's the big challenger or potential competitor for the Les Clefs.
What was the last sentence? I'm sorry?
That means any potential competitor.
Competitor.
Yeah, in the service industry will be happen or will be let us to facing to. So I want to listen to your comment. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Good question. Off the top of my head, you don't have a competitor. You've been doing this since 1929. You are the gold standard for Clé d'Or, for Concierge, for customer service, and have held that title since the beginning. There's a reason why credit card companies have their own concierge departments. There's a reason why every upscale brand is trying to create a concierge department, because customer service doesn't sound as sexy. So one of the things you have to do as a group is to continue to excel. The job of the executives is to protect the brand name and to make sure that the identity, the keys, the Les Clefs d'Or, is protected. And I know you have the copyrights, and you're very good at keeping that in. The biggest, every brand that has failed or has stumbled recently was because they did not meet the expectations of their customers. Everyone knows Tesla, right? The car company out of the States, electric cars. You know, they just released the Model 3, and in one day they pre-sold 115,000 cars that these people will not see for 2 years. That's a powerful statement of trust, that I'll give you money for a car I'm not going to see for 2 years. How did they do that? By consistently delivering and exceeding those expectations. Brands that don't do that, and I can think of, we can look at Apple, when they released their own version of Maps. I don't know how many of you tried it. It was horrible. It was so horrible that Tim Cook actually apologized publicly for releasing that. If you have to do that as a CEO of a company, to say, I'm sorry, that product should not have gone out, that's a problem, because you are so below expectation for that brand. It's like anytime my iPhone stops working, I'm angry. Because I assume it's going to work, always. That's what they sold me, something so simple, my 3-year-old daughter can use it. So if I can't use it, I feel betrayed. So when we talk about competing brands, first off, you've got a great head start. But it's to own the name. And you can only do that by delivery. And then making sure that your message is so clear that you're all saying the same thing, that you're all making the same promise, so that it doesn't matter which city I go to, regardless of the section that city happens to be in, regardless of the language spoken, that my experience with a Les Clefs member is identical or better than. You're really only competing with yourselves in the room. It's great because it's a friendly competition. But that's really what it comes down to. I know in China that Les Clefs is not alone. And I know that's a very difficult situation that's happening in China right now, and I understand that. But in terms of when we look at brands, it has to be based on delivery, on exceptional, over-the-top, passionate, committed delivery. I think we're out of time for questions. I'm around the rest of the week. I get to breathe now, maybe see Dubai. So definitely grab me. I'm at the trade show tomorrow with the rest of the brand people. So definitely, I appreciate, again, everything you do, and thank you so much. And enjoy the rest of the education day.